Second drop. Broke the camera curse. Not a big one, but second drop, good pound, good eater. So what we're doing in this river system, you can see that, and you'll see it in some other shots, but a lot of these trees are laying perpendicular to the river. A lot of guys come in here and they fish this visible stuff that is perpendicular. I like the stuff that's laying parallel with the river. So this laydown that I'm fishing here, this is upstream. So you've got a root ball up here, and then these trees, the root ball always catches and the branches swing downstream. That's what I'm fishing. So all this stuff that we're fishing today, almost every piece will be parallel to the river. And so that's why you'll see today my boat positioning is a little different than if it were perpendicular where I'm actually pitching up towards the bank. I'm actually going to be fishing parallel with the bank all day. We've got a pretty heavy jig. This is a new 1/8 ounce jig. This is a beaver bottom bait. It's pretty big. A lot of guys up here in the river fish a smaller bait, and we've got smaller baits tied on. But like I told you this morning, if they'll eat a big bait, we'll catch a lot. Well, that was the second drop, and we saw one smoke it. So hopefully we have a good day. That's where this LiveScope cuts back a lot of my time, as it used to. Whenever I would side image down through here, I would throw marker buoy out on one end and marker buoy out on the other end, and we would seriously have to fish all of it. So we might start on the branches that are sticking up, then fish down the trunk, and then the root ball with 2 marker buoys. And some of these trees are 60, 70 foot long. I mean, some of them are the size of this sycamore that you see right there that wash out in here. And so you spend a lot of time in the old days just fishing. Well, now we can pull up here and we can say, okay, there's nothing on the root ball. They're all out a little bit shallower, suspended underneath the branches. So that's where this technology is really refined what we're doing, because now obviously it doesn't make them bite, but at least you know, okay, like right there's a ton of big crappie, and they're right out here suspended in these branches. You know, and like what Zeke was saying earlier, boat control, I still have a lot of clients that'll show up and they'll be like, okay, we got to get in my boat and you show me what I'm doing wrong, and I'll stand behind them, and it's real simple. They're charging up on stuff, and then they're having to turn their trolling motor and put it in reverse to back up because they came up on it too fast, and they're blowing fish off of, especially when you get into shallow cover. Now these fish are deeper, they're not as spooky, but you get in less than 12 or 13 and you turn your trolling motor to back over something, you're going to spook those fish. And it may not spook them off of there, but they lock down. They're not in their natural state. They know something's not right, and they're just harder to catch. So 99% of the time in this river, instinctively, I'm gonna point upstream because there's normally a little bit of current. Now, if the wind were blowing, I'd be pointed into the wind and just kind of creep up on this stuff and really use this scope to see, okay, where are they? How are they set up? Are they way down in it? Are they up shallow? But yeah, creeping up to stuff to me is very, very important. Even though it may take me 2 to 3 minutes longer to pull up on a spot, I'm probably going to be more successful than the guys that rush up to it. This is the root ball end of that laydown. They're little crappie, but way down in the actual root ball itself, it looks like there's a couple of better fish, but not seeing 100% what I want to see on them. But that's just the nature of this river. This laydown in 2 hours can be loaded. These fish do move a lot more than what we ever thought they did. Because you can pull up to this spot in a couple hours when it's in the shade, once the sun gets over a little bit, and it might be loaded. Up here right in front of me, I saw on LiveScope that there are some fish on this laydown, and as luck would have it, there's a boat running down the river. And you know, boat traffic kind of makes some people upset. What I did just then is I'm going to stop and let this boat wake go by me, probably waste a minute, but what it's going to allow me to do is pull up on these fish and be able to hopefully catch them without my boat splashing. A lot of people think it's the boat running by that scares these fish. That's not it. It's your boat splashing up and down from the wake. So don't get mad at boats running up and down. Just back off a little bit, wait until it passes, and then come up on them. So today we started out kind of power fishing. The reason why I always start with the bigger bait is because I can fish it more efficiently. You know, if he'll zoom down on the rods here in a minute, I've got some little tiny hair jigs with a split shot and all of that finesse stuff. And sometimes I have to go to that to catch them. But if I can catch them power fishing, especially anywhere where you've got current, this bait's gonna get down there really quick. I'm not sitting there waiting for it, feeding it line to try to get it down there, because the boat's almost always moving a little bit. Even if you're sitting dead still, you're moving a little bit. And so with the bigger bait, especially as a guide, my clients can get it down on them quick where we're actually seeing those fish, can get it down there to them. And like I say, if they'll eat a big bait, you're gonna have a lot better day than if you've got to go to the smaller stuff. There he is. Another average fish. So tell you real quick what we've got here. This is my signature rod, one of my signature rods. We've got everything from 5.5 up to 14 feet. This is a 10.5. It's the rod that I prefer. It's got a lot of backbone. A lot of people think it's too stiff, but I like to play with these once I get them in the boat, not out there. Got 10-pound K9 braid. I've got an Abu Garcia Black Max reel, which the reel to me doesn't matter for this style of fishing because we're not casting. It's more about the rod, the line, and the bait. And like I say, the bait is made by a company called Redneck Rubber. They make the head and the plastic. This plastic actually has a beaver tail. I've kind of cut it a little bit and shortened it up. These black crappie, and hopefully we'll catch some whites today and I'll be able to show you. But this fish, this is about a 130, 135, somewhere in there. This fish, as a black species, his mouth is about 50% smaller than a pound white crappie. So these black fish, they just feed a little bit different, and so that's why we're kind of shortening up that jig. You don't want as long a bait just so they can suck it in. Plus, I mean, it's middle of December. Their metabolism is slowed down a little bit, but you can still get them to bite. So you can see right here, this is actually the base of this laydown that we're looking at. There's some of it that's visible, but this is the base of it. There are some fish that are down, and they're pretty much underneath this stuff. So instead of pulling up on there and getting right where the trolling motor's right on them, I'm trying to keep my bait or my boat back a little bit, kind of pitching out there. Not that far. That pitch right there went out there 15 feet, and get this bait down there. Now, this time of the year, I don't add much action at all. It's more of a smooth up and down, kind of taking the bait away from the fish very slowly. And one tip that I can give you that clients do wrong every day, and I have to get onto them for the first 3 hours before they figure it out. If you drop this bait down with your rod and you start raising up with your rod, you raise up really fast. But if you will hold this line in your hand, I'm not holding this line in my hand for sensitivity. The reason I'm holding it in my hand is because even if I pull up to here, I've still only moved this jig a foot. From this finger to the rod is actually how far you've raised up. A lot of people would think that it's both of these distances. It's not. So as that jig gets down there and I'm slowly raising up, I'm doing it slow. As opposed to if I'm doing it with my rod and you're looking at squirrels and this and that, and you look over here as you're raising up and you've actually raised it up 3 feet without even trying. So it is a very, very slow, methodical presentation.
There he is. Big.
Good fish.
Yep.
Did you see how shallow he was?
Yeah.
Pretty black fish. Yep, hop up there. So what I've done is we've got quite a bit of current in here now. So even though I'm fishing a heavy jig, I did add a split shot to it because we're having to pitch roughly 20 feet out to get our bait down to even 15 feet because of the current. But pretty fish, good eater. Oh, there's better fish. Well, we finally got out of the current and we're getting ready to whack them. Good fish. So the presentation that I'm doing here is I'm not really jigging the bait as far as actually jigging. I do every once in a while just to see if it'll get a reaction, but mainly what I'm doing, these black crappie up here, they really like a bait that's slowly being pulled away from them. And as I'm watching this LiveScope, when I see one that kind of is coming up and really looking at it, and I'm just slowly pulling it away from him, that seems to get the best reaction as opposed to a jigging. There are days where every once in a while you'll jig it, kind of do something extreme, and it'll get that reaction out of them. But most days up here in this deeper clear water, it's real slow and methodical, just up about a foot, and then I'm gonna drop it right back down into them. For some reason, this school that's back on this end, this down current side, doesn't seem to be real active. The better bites that I'm getting are when I'm up in this wood a little bit, where these fish are actually kind of set up. Seems like the fish that are further upstream are the more active fish. These that are sitting back in here that are kind of taking the seconds, so to speak, the stuff that got by the first ones really aren't that active. The more active fish seem to always be on this up current side.